Hello everyone, this is Brooke, analyst from Today in DeFi. Today I would like to quickly go through an interesting company called Sharplink Gaming, SBET. And the Sharplink Gaming, just like all the other traditional gaming companies, the price was pretty active back in early 2000. However, the price getting more and more tame, and there was barely any highlight going forward. However, in the last few months, we see that the price of Sharplink Gaming got active over again, and then it once reached a level above 75 from level below 1 or at 1 or 2. And so today, even though the price is not as high as the previous high, however, it's still much elevated compared to where it was before June, before all these actions. And this is actually due to the announcement Sharplink Gaming recently made about the private placement deal to initiate Ethereum Treasury strategies. This decision made Sharplink Gaming the second largest holder of ETH, only after Ethereum Foundation, and also make it the biggest holder of ETH in terms of tradable public companies listed in Nasdaq in the US. This is actually a very, very major decision, and it is expected to affect the Ethereum market quite a lot. And it's also pretty obvious that the Sharplink is trying to replicate the MicroStrategy's strategy, and then to do the same thing for ETH instead of BTC this time. So I think it might be useful to quickly go through how the mechanism of MicroStrategy works and why the market see it as a very, very successful example. MicroStrategy, just like Sharplink, is using the BTC, or for Sharplink is ETH, as a collateral, and both MicroStrategy and Sharplink is transforming their company into a pure financing vehicle with the sole purpose to acquire more and more online assets. In the MicroStrategy case, BTC. So it's going to leverage its own gateway with the traditional financial institution to secure a loan, and it's also going to leverage its own access to the credit market to issue more debt and raise capital. And as you can see, because the online asset for MicroStrategy is BTC, and it's actually pretty volatile from the traditional market perspective, and with that, this kind of elevated volatility come with a higher price for the options due to the higher implied volatility. And with that, MicroStrategy leveraged this volatility, issue convertible bond. Convertible bond is different than a plain corporate bond in the sense that there is actually a call option embedded. So it means that if you're convertible bond holders, and when the price of the online share, MSTR in this case, rises above a certain level, which is the conversion price in this case, these holders have the right to sell their convertible bond back to MicroStrategy to get the MSTR share in return at the predefined price. And in most of the time, this predefined price is much lower than the market price. And therefore, that's the reason why we say that there's a call option embedded in the convertible bond. And the MicroStrategy is using the BTC volatility to sell the call option to the convertible bond buyers, and therefore get to negotiate a much lower interest rate for the corporate bond, much lower than the peers. It's almost like 0% for such high level of the volatility of the online asset BTC. And by doing so, by using the volatility to issue the convertible bond at a very low price, MicroStrategy get to secure very cheap funding. And with this kind of cheap funding, it use all the asset, it use all the fund it raised to buy more BTC. And after it buy more BTC, it repeat the process. So after they buy more BTC, the news is very positive for the BTC price. So it pushed the price upward. And right now the call option is worth even more. So they issue the convertible bond over again with the lower coupon rate and with the better terms for the company. And they raise more funding, and they use funding to buy the BTC again, and then repeat. So this kind of flywheel effect, MicroStrategy has been pretty successful in building. And from the MSTR holders perspective, right now, around 60 or 70% of the company assets, in this case, is almost 100% BTC, is funded through debt. And it means that MSTR holders, by contributing only 40% of the funding to the company, they get to enjoy 100% of the upside exposure of all the MicroStrategy BTC holdings. So that's the reason why people are saying that holding the MSTR is very similar to holding the leveraged BTC position, because you are holding the MSTR, which is common shares. However, due to the MicroStrategy's unique position to be able to secure funding from the financial market, you are actually holding BTC with leverage. And that's the reason why MSTR price is also doing pretty good. And it again push up the call option price for the MSTR, and therefore make it easier for MicroStrategy to issue convertible bond with favorable terms. So most of the time, nearly 0% coupon rate and also very high conversion price. That is how MicroStrategy works, and its whole mechanism. So I think that if SBET, Sharplink Gaming, want to replicate the MicroStrategy mechanism, they have to answer two questions. The first one is that if the market has the same faith in us right now, especially those traditional market participants. So in this case, the reason why people are so interested in the convertible bond of MicroStrategy is that convertible bond provided a unique way to participate in the BTC market. So in this case, if the BTC price did rise by quite a lot, MSTR price will also increase. So it means that for these convertible bond holders, the probability for them to be able to convert their bond into shares is also higher, and therefore it means that they get to participate in the upside potential for BTC price by simply holding the convertible bond. However, if the BTC price failed to rise, or it failed to reach the conversion price, at the end, at the maturity day, they still get to get back their full principal without incurring any loss. So convertible bond is actually a very conservative way for them to participate in the traditional financial market. However, even though it's very conservative, it's still building on top of the assumption that the market is interested or even have faith in the BTC price. So Sharplink Gaming have to know, like, if the market right now have the same faith in. So that's the first question they have to answer to determine if they can replicate the same model as the MicroStrategy. And the second answer they have to answer is that if the market also have the same level of confidence in MicroStrategies or in MicroSeller itself, or if the Sharplink can have the same reputation as MicroStrategy and MicroSeller. Because right now in the market has been pretty cool. They work in the same direction. And the MicroStrategy itself is like a symbol for them overall right now among all the BTC long-term holders and all the BTC believers. However, we have all kind of opinion leaders, and people are not so much 100% believe in Ethereum Foundation, and they so much believe in, for example, Vitalik. And right now there are different kind of opinions going on, and sometimes contradicting with each others. So they have to, the other question to answer is if they can build the same kind of trend in the ETH market as how MicroStrategy is building in the market, and therefore convince the traditional market that ETC the same upside, and to build some kind of environment that just make the investor keep believing in buying more SBET shares. Therefore, the price of BTC or ETH will always be going up. These are the two questions SBET has to answer in order to replicate the MicroStrategy model. And I think it's also the two of the biggest challenges. And if you take a closer look of the announcement here, you can see that actually all of the investors here are crypto-based. And it means that there is actually no traditional financial institution being part of the deal. So it means that right now, SBET hasn't yet proved that it had the same access or the same reputation as MicroStrategy in the traditional financial market. So it means that if the Sharplink want to fire up the leverage for the SBET holders, you have to first prove that it can actually use the ETH volatility to issue the convertible bond at a similar level of favorable terms as the MicroStrategies, and therefore it can raise more and buy more and more, and therefore make its share worth more and more, and therefore to be really a meaningful support for the ETC price overall. This is a little bit of the introduction about Sharplink comparison with MicroStrategy, and just to analyze some of the challenges it needs to overcome in the future to be as successful as the MicroStrategy, and also what to expect from the Sharplink overall in the near future.